passe. Super, l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
Hello and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. It's me, Alex Kulesh, joined by Chris O'Reilly. And we have a special Bundesliga episode today. And I don't know why I said Bundesliga so weirdly there, but it just shows how excited I am for this year's German Handball Championship. Do want to thank all of our Patreon members, as always, for supporting us. And we have some new members as well, which we'll get as we promised, we'll get a shout out on the podcast. So thank you for Pierre Kalia, who joined us, as well as Sigrid Bergman and Luke Naylor, who has come back to us. I'm pretty sure he stopped the membership a while ago, but has come back as a Patreon member. He couldn't stay away. So if you do enjoy this podcast, sign up for our Patreon. So Patreon.com/handball hour for as little as €3 a month, or whatever the equivalent of that is in your local currency. You'll get a weekly podcast, the Morning Club, coming at you, as well as bonus podcasts like the one we had last week, previewing the IHF Super Globe and the Pan Am Games and all the exciting stuff that happened. So look out for more things to come on our Patreon channel. So sign up, you'll enjoy it. You'll get a shout out on the podcast, and you might even become a guest like Daniel Reed did, but we won't promise that to everyone. We've just come out of a international break, which had some interesting games, which we might touch on a little bit, but the core of today's chat will be to talk about the winners and the losers in the Bundesliga so far. For that, we'll be joined by Sascha Staat.
Hey guys.
And also joining Björn Pazen. The dream team is here again. And again, we didn't tell them that the other person is going to be attending this chat, but we like to.
It's like a blind date.
But you see, we're still online.
Yes, yeah. The love is there. Okay, yeah. So winners and losers of the Bundesliga season so far. We're 11 rounds in for most teams, and some interesting stories throughout the league, I think it's fair to say. Should we start? What do you want to start with, Alex? Winners or losers? Should we start with a positive note before we start trashing Kiel?
Yeah, let's start with the winners. Let's start with the winners. You got one for us, Chris, to kick us off?
I mean, I'm gonna take one straight from the top row, and I think it's a little bit of a surprise in how well they've been so far this season, and it's Füchse Berlin. And in particular, we can go into the players in the winners and losers here, but one in particular I want to get everyone's thoughts on is Lasse Andersen, who for me has been the big winner of this season's Bundesliga so far.
It's not surprising that they're on the top. It's surprising with the number of points that they have. They're still unbeaten, and they only gave 1 point in Gummersbach away. And they played some real good matches. For example, the one against Magdeburg. And what you say with Lasse Andersen, of course, he's a winner. But I would name the three Danes the winner: Lasse Andersen, Matthias Gitzel, and Hans Lindberg. And I think they have scored almost 50% of all Berlin goals. They're all among the top 5 in the top scorer list. Gitzel is on number 2. And of course, Lasse Andersen could not be expected that high number of goals that he scored. But I think it's really this style they play, that Gitzels and Lasse Andersen, they did not depend that much on Jakob Holm last season, what you see now, that they can score without him, that they have the young Nils Lichtlein. But I think a lot of things are handled directly between both of them, Lasse Andersen and Matthias Gitzels. And if it comes to penalties, then you have Hans Lindberg, and then you have a Danish trio of top scorers in the German capital.
I agree with Björn. Actually, it's just not Lasse Andersson. But if you take a look at the statistics from the last game at Gummersbach, where they gave away a 7-goal lead in the second half, it was not one of the better games of Lasse Andersson. And I think the importance of him in this team now is a little bit underrated because Paul Drux is out, Fabian Wiede is out. So key players from the backcourt are not playing right now. They will come back during the season, but right now there's more load on the shoulders of Lasse Andersson. And I think there were some people doubting his abilities. I think he's a quality player. I'm not sure if he's a world-class player. Of course, he's an international level top player, no doubt about that. But consistency has been a problem of him. And if you take a look at the stats from the Gummersbach game, he had an off day. Füchse Berlin only got a point after a 7-goal lead. They ran a little bit out of gas in the second half. But if you take an overall look at the games he has played so far this season, he's been very, very impressive. I mean, everybody expected that from Matthias Gissel. And we know that Hans Lindberg will always score his goals. But Lasse Andersson was a question mark. And until now, I'm very surprised in a positive way by his performances.
Sascha, if you were to rank the top 3 reasons for why Füchse Berlin are at the top right now, and I'll give you 3 options to rank them. So 1 is just Matthias Gitzel. 2 is Jaren Sievert. And 3 is the youth system. So I'm going to give that to Kretschmar and the rest of the team. But like the youth
you got to give us a Bob.
Big Bob.
Oh,
Big Bob had it.
No, you can't give that to Kretschmer.
So those 3, how would you rank the importance of those 3 inputs into the season that Füchse Berlin are having so far?
The players would always say it's a mix of all 3 of them. But that's a little boring. So I would probably say that the base for everything Füchse achieved in the last 10 to 15 years is their youth system, because they're always able to fill up roster spots with younger players because they don't have the money like, I don't know, Melsung has, maybe. They don't have the money that Kiel has. So they have to find ways to fill the roster spots with talented players anyway. And they did that. Nils Lichtlein, he will be an absolute massive player in the next 10 years, I'm quite sure, because he understands the game so well. And he's just one example. Maybe it doesn't work out with all the players. I don't know if Matthias Langhoff is good enough to be a Bundesliga player on this level or a Champions League player, let's say, because they want to go to the Champions League. But Drux and Wiede came from their youth system. And now Lichtlein is the next one. I'm sure at some point Lasse Ludwig, the young goalkeeper, will be a cornerstone of their team. So I think you have to praise the youth system and the combination of Gitzel and Sievert, because I talked to Matthias Gitzel a couple of times this season already, and he said that Sievert and him, they learned both that they have to find a different approach to games compared to last season, especially away games. And the Gummersbach game was the only game where they lost a little bit of their focus, also because there was a great atmosphere within the arena. And that's probably also a major factor why Gummersbach was able to come back. But I think the combination Sievert-Gitzel is working even better this year than it worked last year, because both of them, they learned a lot.
The things you were saying earlier, Sascha, about Lasse was the main reason why I mentioned him as a big winner for this season. It's a player that we've spoken about a lot as somebody who all of a sudden was going to get a lot more responsibility in the team. And we're seeing that throughout the starting 7. There's so much responsibility on them to get the job done, even if there are times where the younger players, the rest of the squad, are filling in. But there is still a little bit of a question mark. And we saw it last season about just how sustainable it is for the whole season. Björn, do you think it is something they can sustain for the entire season?
This is exactly the problem. When you put the responsibility on the shoulders of players like Lasse Andersson, of course you have the younger players, but they will have to play the whole season, both more or less in attack and in defense. And they will have the Euro ahead. They have a lot of international games with the European League ahead. So you saw it really last season at the end that Gitzel was running out of power. So this is the point that what Kretsche was saying, for example, in the last weeks is we need more width in the squad. We need more players. We need more top quality players because we cannot rely only on a player like Gitzel that he plays 58 matches, 60 minutes on the top level. So you have to give him the time to recover. And this is exactly those players who jump in for Lasse Andersson and for Gitzel. Of course, Wiede comes back, Brooks comes back, they can jump in. This is exactly the point that how much those key players can recover, that when it counts from March to June, that they have enough power, and still having in mind that for most of them, then the season's not over, but the highlight is still coming with the Olympic Games. So then you have to see of course, they have 2 weeks break, something like this, but when it counts, you have to be on a high level. This is what we always talk in the advantage maybe for Barcelona, but they have that they're lacking the mental strength as they don't play the home season. But of course in Germany you see it with we come to Melsung later, that every team can beat every team. That it's nothing you can rest. No, more or less, Berlin can rest the players in the European League than in the Bundesliga.
So Fuchs Berlin, definitely a winner. Whether they stay winners, that's the question. But it is pretty amazing to see the gap they've already made at the top. Of course, that result against Gummersbach has set them back a little bit, but that they do have a little bit of space. Anyone want to volunteer a loser over the season so far?
Alex, that's you.
I can choose one at the moment.
Go on.
Definitely, I would say it's TBV Lemgo at the moment. They have expected much more. They're on the 15th position. They on the 14th position. Sorry, they are only they have the same number of points as Wetzlar on the 17th. So they had a run of I think 6 or 7 matches without any point, including the elimination in the German Cup. And this is definitely not what they had expected. So usually Lemgo is a team for a position between, I would say, 7 and 10. And if they have a good season, they can also jump into the European League position, for example, by the Cup or finishing 6th. But this year it's really not running. And I don't know exactly what the problem is there. I think that when you start to have a kind of losing streak, then at the end it goes down and down, and you lose matches which you have won if you're on the opposite side of the ranking, definitely. So there was really a lot of mistakes in the Lemgo matches, and when you see that the start was quite okay, but now I don't know how long it is that they had a real great match. So this is the point when you lose your confidence. You lose it maybe for too long in this season. I don't think that they will relegate to the second division, but definitely they're stronger. They have a stronger squad than the position they have.
I would agree on that. To be honest, I think that Lemgo, as Björn said, they have a better team than their current position shows. But they had some injury problems at the start of the season. For example, Tim Souton was out. He's a key player for them because he got a lot of experience. And at some point, I think that also they had some lack of confidence because they went on a losing streak. And I was there to commentate the game against Leipzig, and Leipzig, I think, had a solid game, especially on defense, but they didn't have a world-class game. And Lemgo didn't find any solutions. I think very high of Lukas Huticek, the Austrian playmaker of Lemgo. I think he can be a very, very good player in the future. And I think probably he should look for a better club because he's that good of a player, if you ask me. So he's one to watch out for. But with the rest of the team, they have a lot of solid players, also experienced players. It's not that young of a team, to be honest. Mm-hmm. They have like Bobby Schagen, they have Niels Verstein, they have other players who are not like 22, 23 years old. So they got experience, but they always have a lot of changes. We still remember that Bjarki Maelisson and Jonathan Karlsborg left the club, and they still were able to play attractive and successful handball. So I give a lot of credit to Florian Kehrmann because it was not easy to make that transition. It's two very good players they lost.
Yeah.
But this season, it was a very sloppy start. And yeah, I can agree with Björn that it's maybe one of the big losers of the season so far, but also Wetzlar, because I've been at Wetzlar for the game against Bergischer HC. They look so, I don't know, with the body language is awful. It's just not fun to watch their games. And I will be at Eisenach on Friday to be there against the game against Wetzlar. Actually, that will be very, very important for both teams because Eisenach needs all the points they can get at home, but Wetzlar is under immense pressure. The team looks, I don't know, I don't want to say wasted in some way, but I got the feeling this team is so, I don't know, I don't find the right word. Boring is also not the right word to use in this sense. It's similar to Göppingen, you know? It's an older team, and I don't want to say that nobody cares about them. That's also not true. But everybody's talking about Eisenach. It's a lot of fun to watch them because they play a different defense, and everybody is sort of entertained when they play. But you're not entertained at all if you watch games of Göppingen or Wetzlar.
Just to continue about this Wetzlar story is usually when you make a surprise like this, you beat Kiel at home in the cup. You eliminate THW Kiel in the cup, and this should boost your confidence until Christmas normally. And they won one match afterwards, and it's all over again. I cannot imagine. Usually, you run through the season like we beat Kiel on their ground in the cup, but the confidence did not last.
This bottom half of the table is just phenomenal. Like, you look from 11th down to 17th, and there's 1 point between them all. So, you know, even talking about these teams in their positions doesn't even feel relevant because, you know, one victory for a number of teams and a loss for another means they could be in the relegation places. I saw Ballingen a couple of weeks ago, and they look better than a team in 18th place. Like, they feel like a team that if some things click, then they're going to get a couple of wins all of a sudden and maybe join the rest of them on the same amount of points. You mentioned Eisenach there, despite being, and I said, the positions don't feel so relevant. They're in 16th at the moment, but they are joint on 7 points with a bunch of teams. The way they're playing is entertaining. They've got a brilliant goal scorer. Are they, the fact that they're even in the conversation and not on 0 points, does that make them a winner so far, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up because in our preview podcasts, I think both Björn and Sascha had pretty harsh words to say about Eisenach, which then I carried forward, and then
they won their opening game.
They won their opening game and started amazingly, but they have reverted a little bit now. When I was thinking that they're kind of mid-table still, but when I look at the table, they're down in 16th, of course, level 13th potentially. But I think Manuel Zender and Eisenach are winners because, as Björn and Sascha mentioned, at least they're entertaining. There's other teams in this competition who may not be the top teams, but Eisenach are entertaining, and they've got some big wins under their belt, including Rhein-Neckar-Löwen, who I think are one of my losers. And in particular, I'm going to say that Uri Knorr is one of the losers of the Bundesliga so far. Because going back to predictions, and I got you guys, but I'll get myself this time. I said before the season started that Uri Knorr is ready to have an unbelievable season, take it to the next level in preparation for the Euros in Germany, that he can take Rhein-Neckar-Löwen to the next level, and he just hasn't done that. We've seen some glimpses, especially over the last couple of weeks, where he's starting to show his really incredible ability, but he hasn't been good enough, and Rhein-Neckar-Löwen haven't been good enough either. They sit on 11 points so far in 7th place. So What's been up with Yurik Noor, Björn?
I would say put it together as the Rhein-Neckar-Löwen thing. Rhein-Neckar-Löwen had so many injuries in the preparation and also even before the preparation, and Uwe Gensheimer is out for months. Then it was Ole Schäffert who's out for months. Then now it is Halil Jagannjats again who's out for a long term, and there's some more players. So some young players like David Mouré jumped in, but I agree with you that the Löwen are not that strong as in the last season, as in the start in the last season. They were the surprise pack last year. I think they won the first 6 matches, and then nobody had expected a start like this. And this year, they're the cup winners, and everybody expected a start like this, and it's not working. As you mentioned, for example, the defeat at Eisenach. Usually, with a squad like this, you cannot lose at Eisenach. And I would also go back what Alex said, that Eisenach belongs to the winners, not only because it's entertainment to see, it's how they start their adventure in Bundesliga, and that they really they impressed myself. I have to say, I was completely wrong at the start of the season. So they impressed me in the way they were playing, and also impressed me by the way Misha Kaufmann was coaching them. So, but back to the Löwen, Yurik Noor did not have I would say, the players left and right to him to improve that. And I would also say that maybe there was too much on his shoulders. Everybody said, yeah, Yurik Noor will become the star of the season. Who will be the best player of the season? Gitzel or Knorr right before the season. And maybe this responsibility and this public pressure is not good for him. So I saw him. Sascha also saw him on Sunday in Munich at the day of handball against Egypt, and he made a really good match. So he was something like in his high level what he showed at the World Championship in January. But it is the problem that there's too much responsibility maybe for him, and too less top players left and right to him.
I would agree on that once again. I'm always agreeing with Björn today. I don't know what's going on.
Well, yeah.
Just one final take on Eisenach and the team. They look inspired. And Göpping and especially Wetzlar, they look uninspired. This is probably the word I was looking for earlier. But talking about Rhein-Neckar-Löwen, I think that it's actually true. The players next to Yurik Noor are just not good enough. I think Jon Lindenkrone, the Danish right-back player, is a very good example. They lost Albin Lagergren, who can look uninspired just from his body language in every single game, but still can score 7 or 9 goals.
Yeah,
that's the difference. I mean, he's not the emotional guy, but he hardly makes a lot of mistakes. So you can rely on him probably every single game. You say, okay, you get 80% from Lagergren. It's better than getting 90% from Lindenkrone one game and 50% the next game, because you know what you get. And I think, with Jagannjats out for a long time, this is a problem also on the left back position. Philipp Aouansou, the young German left back, at some point he had great games, but only for like 10, 15 minutes. Then he's really showing off because he has great shooting abilities, but then he's playing like 20 minutes like really awful. I watched the game Löwen at Eisenach. They made so many technical mistakes. And at some point, I also think that Yurik Noor, because you were talking about him, that he's maybe forcing it a little bit too much because he knows he has to deliver. And he doesn't have like Jagannjats on the left side and Lagergren on the right side anymore. So that's a problem. And also, Ole Forsell-Schäffert was injured. And to be honest, I think we have to talk about him in our MVP conversation, or yours, basically, because you see what happened to Wetzlar since he left them and how he transformed Rhein-Neckar-Löwen last year when he was playing. He's a difference maker. He's a real difference maker. He's not a world-class player, but MVP means most valuable player to a single team. And if you take him away from Rhein-Neckar-Löwen, you see how they perform. You see how Wetzlar is performing without him. They are shit without him for the last 1.5 years. So he's a real difference maker. And for me, okay, Matthias Gisel is playing on a sky high level. He's an MVP of MVPs. But Ole Forsell-Schäffert, he's a real difference maker. And that's also one of the reasons why Rhein-Neckar Löwen are not performing the way they did last year.
He's such a versatile player as well. You can throw him in anywhere and he'll do a job. But just one thing on Yuri Knorr last bit, because I think you both said it, and some stats to back up about him forcing it, him having a lot of like too much relying on his shoulders is, you look at his goals scored to shots missed, 39 goals scored, 37 shots missed, and that includes 11 penalty goals. And then something that Alex really loves, the assists to turnover ratio. Assists 27, turnovers or technical faults 21. So that's almost 1-to-1. And you see that throughout the Leuven side as well. You've Gustav Davidsson as well, whose assist to turnover is 22-25. Nicholas Kirkelucka 19-12. And Jon Lindenkrone 17-15. So it's a lot of turnover possessions from those backcourt players. And maybe gives a little bit of insight into what's going on there.
Various games where they got more than 15 technical faults. And you can hardly win games when you have like 15 technical faults. I mean, the goalkeepers, they have done a very good job at Rhein-Neckar Löwen so far this season. I mean, look at the goalkeepers they have. But still, if you have 15 turnovers, it's hard to win handball games in the Bundesliga.
But does that not really come down to Yuri Knorr? Because he's the person who's setting this attack up. He is controlling it. So the tempo that he's playing, and maybe the players beside him are not at that absolute peak that he needs for Rhein-Neckar Löwen to be like first in the championship. That's for sure. But the players beside him are maybe not good enough, but Rhein-Neckar Löwen sitting 7th on 11 points, and he's the one who's setting the tempo, and he has the role of making the team better. And right now, he's not making the team better. At times, he's performing well and making himself look good, but overall, I don't think he's making Rhein-Neckar Löwen good right now.
Maybe you can compare it a little bit of the situation of CSM Bucharest and the Macedonian national team with Christina Neagu and Kirill Lazarov. So in the end, there's one player, he's the game changer, and if he's not running good, you give him the ball. In this case, Rick Knorr is more the one who has the ball and wants to spread it and want to bring his team players in a perfect position, but in the end, it's him. So if Kirill Lazarov scores 8 goals, more or less, he had 15 or 16 attempts. And at the moment, Christina Niagu has a similar stats. So if there's only one player, so everything, the whole responsibility of a team is putting on. So then in the end, you have to allow him to make mistakes because nobody else wanted to make a mistake, maybe.
And before we were talking about the players next to Yuri Knorr. The only player who's still next to him from last year is Yannick Kohlbacher, and he's a line player. So if you put 2 cans of beans next to Matthias Gissel in the backcourt, he won't win games either. It's not working. So I mean, Yuri Knorr can only do so much. Sorry.
That's gonna show up on Handball's Kanalen tomorrow. German commentator calls Gustav Davidsson a can of bean.
He's
he got red hair, so
Sascha, give us a winner.
I think it might be a surprise that I call them a winner right now is SC Magdeburg, because they got 3 points on the negative side of their balance, but I think it was a loss at Füchse Berlin, and you can lose at Füchse Berlin, so that's all right. They got a draw. I have to check. I checked it before. They got a draw
Leipzig.
At Leipzig, where other teams lost. So it's also all right. And they had some impressive performances. They won by 16 at Wetzlar, all right? We talked about Wetzlar earlier. But they won against Flensburg, and they won against Kiel, and they won against Hanover. They won by 12 against Bergische HC right now. They are back with almost all players on the roster. Gisli Kristjansson is the only player they miss right now. There are rumors that he might be back before Christmas. They're almost at 100% and they're clicking again. And it's only one loss and one draw so far. So for me, that's really a clear winner because they're in a very, very good position to win the league again. Everybody is talking about Füchse Berlin. Everybody is talking about the bad start of Kiel, and then they don't have a good transition like from older to younger players, that they still need time. Everybody's also talking about Melsung, that they're finally winning games, but nobody's talking about Magdeburg. They're the Champions League winner, and they won the league in 22. So why are we not talking about Magdeburg? I don't get it. They're only Gisli Kristjansson away from, a 15-game winning streak. They're that.
I fully agree with you.
They're clicking as a team. They don't have the best players on the world at any position, but they're a very good team. And that's quite impressive. I don't know how Bennett Wiegert is doing it, because every time I talk to him and I meet him somewhere, he's like, it's so hard, schedule is so hard, and this game is so hard. And then they win like 10 by 10. I don't get it. I mean, I get his point, but there's no injuries except for Gisli Kristjansson, and there was a freak injury, and he had some history on the shoulder injuries before. So every other player of their roster is playing. And this is also key if you want to win handball games.
Mikkel Damgaard may be injured.
Oh no!
But he's been good this season. Mikkel Damgaard.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but Björn, you're gonna say something about Magdeburg?
Yeah, but just to follow up what Sascha said, they might not have the best team on the world, but maybe have the best coach of the world. So and the best physio and the best coaching staff and the best. When you see Bennett Wiegert how he works, that. I think his day has 28 hours only for video, everything. So I don't think he sleeps that much. So in the end, this is how they prepare on other teams. And I fully agree with Sascha again. I don't know what is going on today. We permanently agree on each other. So I agree that everybody said, okay, Magdeburg can then have a chance if Gisli is back. So Gisli will be back in January. So this means if they stay in this position as they are now, and they have the wider squad compared to Füchse Magdeburg, then to Füchse Berlin. And then if they're in a similar position in March or April, they definitely have more options. And this means that in the end of the table, if nothing happens to their key players again, like Omar Magnusson or Zaugstrup or maybe Nicola Portner, the goalkeeper, then Magdeburg is definitely one team which can finish ahead of Füchse. And in this season, finishing ahead of Füchse means to become the champion.
The squad is really, really solid. And it's funny, Sascha, you saying that people aren't talking about Magdeburg. If that is the case in Germany, I don't know if they're just used to... There's nothing super spectacular about what they're doing at the moment. They're just, going under the radar, winning matches. Maybe that loss early to Berlin kind of already had some people writing them off, but everything looking really good for them. And I have them as one of my winners as well.
It was not only the loss at Berlin, it was also this real big loss at Barcelona, when they're not competitive on domestic and on international level. And since the loss in Barcelona, they won all the matches. So
yes.
That's it. With the Champions League, we know, well, you don't need to win the opening 2 games of the season. You just need to win the last 2.
And you have to say that the signings that they made have really clicked. Being Felix Clark, who I think has probably been arguably their best player so far this season. Lagergren has just slotted in and made sure that Omarini Magnusson has time to come back. He's still nowhere near the level that he was at, but by having Lagergren there, it just means that Magnusson doesn't have the pressure and he can ramp up to it. And, Smarisson has done what all Icelandic playmakers do. He just slots in and does the job. Add on top of that, Oscar Bergendahl, who was halfway through the season last year signing, you just look at that squad, and it's so solid. There's no weakness to it anywhere, and they can deal with injuries. They can deal with a tight schedule, and I agree. They're just primed for a title challenge, and it really comes down to, literally Matthias Giesel versus the world being Magdeburg in the lead up.
One thing you should not forget is after the last season when they become Champions League winner, everybody said, okay, how can they replace Kai Smith, for example, when he left to Flensburg? And you see, he could be replaced. So in this case, everybody said, okay, Gisli Gustafsson is injured and Kai Smith left. How can you replace this duo, which was incredible, important for winning the Champions League? And you see, they cope with it. And I absolutely agree with Alex. Definitely, Felix Klar is the best new arrival in Bundesliga.
Yeah, ahead of Simon Pitlick. And everybody was talking about Simon Pitlick, and he's a great player, but he still has problems to adapt to a new system, although he knows the coach, and he still has problems to adapt to the Bundesliga because it's a different level than the Danish league. And although Pitlick has shined at the World Championship in January, it's still a different level. Matthias Giesel, when he first arrived at Füchse Berlin, did a better job coming to the Bundesliga and adapting right away. But talking about Magdeburg, we also have to talk about the goalkeepers, Nicola Portner and Sergei Hernandez, both over 30% saving percentage. And that's also a big issue because in the last couple of years, they were not too happy with the goalkeeper performances in Magdeburg. Portner has made a big jump, 33%. So he saves every third shot, and you take this as a coach every time. If you have 1 of 3 saves, it's all right for your team. And he has done a very good job. I think so far this season, he has been the best goalkeeper in the Bundesliga, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I think Nicola Portner has taken a step forward. Would you say, would it be harsh to call Simon Pitlick one of the losers in the Bundesliga so far? I would say so, not only because he's taken time to progress into the Bundesliga, which is fair enough. He's still been good. I think he's really been good for Flensburg, but also the injury is just really really tough for him. I think he's a loser because of circumstance, not because of himself.
Really?
In the Bundesliga so far, he's taken all of the challenges of coming into the Bundesliga, where you have a hard schedule, you adapt as a tougher style of play.
Everyone's targeting you as well.
Everyone's targeting you, and you get an injury a third of the way through the season. And that's just life. And that's the type of life that leads you to becoming a player like Duvniak, who can barely walk at 33 years old.
I would not call him a loser because in the intermediate balance, you just have to see he had a new club. He had, as you said, everything. Like you come as Excellence Award Player of Europe, so the best player of Europe in the last season, which he might have been. So he was awarded for it. So he got this trophy. And so then you come with a new coach to a club, and the club has, from my impression, still the best squad in the club's history. And it's not working at the start. And then you get injured. And then everybody said, what is with this Pitlick? Why is he not scoring goals? Yeah, he's injured, so he cannot play. So, and I think what Sascha said, Matthias Giesel was lucky to have a better start last year in Berlin. And maybe it's a little bit different of the character. But I really say that at the end of the season, when we're talking about winners, losers, and MVPs, we will definitely talk about Simon Pitlick, because when he is on that level that he played for Denmark, and that he learned that in Bundesliga it's not Danish league, then he will be, in combination with the squad they have, he will be among the MVP nominees at the end of the season.
Yeah, and just to say, Simon Pitlick in, I believe, was it 10 games or 9 games that he played? Yeah, and 9 games. Oh, even less. No, 9 games in the Bundesliga. He did score 47 goals 45 goals, has 37 assists, and is shooting 57%, which is pretty good. 57 is just around there, and I think he really started picking up as the season wore on, and got that unfortunate injury. Which, do we know if it will rule him out of the European Championship?
He should be fit by the European Championship, right? I think he's ruled out, they said, until the end of the autumn period. So just in time to be fully healthy for Denmark, which is exactly what everyone wants to hear. We've managed to go quite a long way again and risk rushing through some teams before Björn has to leave us. We still have somehow not talked about Melsungen and Kiel, which is impressive, which is very impressive. So, dealer's choice, Björn, which of the two do you want to go for, Melsungen or Kiel?
I go for Melsungen because this is really funny. Everybody said, okay, Melsungen, they have a big budget and they never get anything. And this year I talked with two players for a longer time, with Julius Kühn and with Ivan Martinovic. What has changed in Melsungen? And what they say is nothing. So the only thing is what we had, we were lucky.
Liars.
Okay, of course, then as a good journalist, you ask them, no, this is not true. What changed? So what they said, this is all the matter of confidence. With that, when we had a lucky schedule at the start, the 3 matches, right? 3 home matches. So they had 6 points after 3 matches. And they said, always our defense was good. And then we had our confidence in attack. And then comes a player like Dennis Christopans, who really improved the team. And then what they stopped talking about, what they both said, is about season goals. They said we're not talking about where we want to finish the season, where we're not finished. So they said the pressure was lower, and when you win 3 matches in a row, now everybody's already happy. So which is not normal, because usually they win 2, they lose 2, they win 3, they lose 1. Something like this, but they had their club starting record with 6 wins in a row. But then, of course, they lost against Bergisch HC, which were the first points from Bergisch HC. But in the end, then they lost against Berlin by a result which was much huger than the gap of the two sides was. So I really say that Melsungen is at the moment still the surprise pack. And they said they were laughing about it when all the discussion started. Can Melsungen can become German champion? I say usually they say when start Melsungen to win a match. So even the external view on Melsungen is completely different. The arena is full. They said we play against I think it was Erlangen on the Monday night, and the arena was sold out. They said the interest is there, and they say everything's about confidence. They're not playing a different style of handball. They got the confidence in attack. They have what I have to say with Sascha about the best goalkeeper duo with Simic and I forgot it again. I always miss the
Moravsky.
Yeah.
Moravsky, yes. So they have a very good goalkeeper duo, and the defense was always good. And now they start scoring. And with a player like Christopans, you can score from 18 meters, I would say. Then you have different weapons now, and of course now they get also some injuries in the squad, and then you have to see if the width of the squad is big enough to keep on that position. But definitely, when we only talk about the first 11 rounds, Melsungen is among the winners.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Melsungen for the game against Stuttgart, and they totally crushed them. Stuttgart had no chance at all, and it looked easy for Melsungen. And that's what Björn said. The confidence makes such a difference. They won the first 3 games at home. Yeah, that was a little bit of luck when it comes to the schedule, but that's not their fault. And then they went to Kiel, and I think they led by 9 midway through the second half. And it was really a great performance. And I think that was the key game for their season. They won away from home at Kiel, where they usually lose by, 10. So they won there, and then they got this kind of confidence. And I talked some minutes to Finn Lemke, and he said it's not actually the offense, but our defensive system we play is working better right now, because Adrian Schiposch, and I know he tends to get a lot of credit from you, Chris.
Yes.
And I still remember the podcast, I think during the World Championship, right? You did with him. And I know that he tends to get red cards and 2 minutes like quite often, but he's done a great job so far in the Bundesliga. And give credit to him. I didn't think it would work out that quickly. And that's also one of the reasons why Melsung is playing successful handball right now.
And 18 goals for Adrian Schippos as well. 18 goals, 5 misses, and his own special, his version of the assist to turnover ratio, blocks to 2-minute suspensions, 12 blocks, 11 suspensions. He's winning in that area too.
That's pretty good. And you have to add defensively, Kristapans. I think people forget about Dennis Kristapans in defense. And it might seem a little bit weird that he plays number 2 in defense. And you might think that that's just kind of hiding a giant player there. But he takes up so much space in that defense, in that number 2 position, where he's literally, it gives so much freedom to Adrian Schippos in the third, being the center defender, to just know that he can cheat over one side, knowing that there's 3 meters that are covered by one player to his right. So I think that's an impact that Dennis Kristapans had on PSG for a long time and has brought it over to Melsungen. Definitely winners. Good vibes in Melsungen is not something that I would have predicted at the start of the season. And Melsungen being a feel-good story is probably, it's we've bullied them for so long. They've had so many bad seasons. It stopped being funny at this stage, so I'm happy they're actually winning for once.
We've spoken so much over the last month or so about Kiel, so we don't have to spend so much time in it, but it would be good to get both of your takes, Björn and Sascha, on what's happening there. The ship being steadied a little bit on it, but to introduce what you two are going to say about it, already in our pre-season podcast, both of you kind of saw this coming as well. Maybe not in the exact way that it's happened, but you did not have a lot of confidence in how they were going to be this season. So what do you think has been the issue or the issues with Kiel so far, Sascha?
Well, I think the issue is not the goalkeeping, although a lot of people say you lost Niklas Landin and he's not there anymore. But if you take a look at the statistics, the shots per save, Samia Belhacen is leading the league at 1.6, and Tomasz Mrkwa is in sixth position, 1.46. The saving percentage of Belhacen, 37.35%. This is really incredible. Okay, he has played just about 2 hours. And Tomasz Mrkwa, 31.5%. That's also good enough. So it's not the goalkeepers. And then there's people saying, yeah, maybe Landin would have had that one save more. I don't think so, because I don't think the goalkeeper is the issue right now in Kiel. It's that their offense is, and I used the word before, uninspired, except for the skipper, who's trying all he can and sometimes also doing the Yuri Knorr, so forcing it a little bit too much. But he's doing a good job. He's a young player. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of experience, so hats off to him. He's trying. But Harald Reinkind, I don't know. Duvniak looks so slow right now, and I'm a big admirer of Domagoj Duvniak over the years. He's a legend, obviously. And other players, I think they're missing Steffen Weinhold on defense a lot. And yeah, I don't know what's going on, because it's always this shooting, Erik Johansson, and when he's not on fire, they have difficulties winning games and stuff like that. And then I was in Paris for the game against Kiel, and they won. For the first time, I don't know, in 8 or 9 years, they won in Paris. So I don't get it. Maybe it was the circumstances, like this game doesn't really matter, and every Bundesliga game matters. So there was not so much pressure, and PSG didn't have a good game also. But I think in the Bundesliga, it's different because teams right now understand they can beat Kiel. And that's really hard for Kiel now, because if Wetzlar is going to beat you on your ground, as Björn said before, every other team can beat you as well. Every other team knows we can beat them. And usually you went to Kiel and you know you would go home without any points. And Melsung won there. Wetzlar won there already in the cup. So other teams, they can win there as well, and they know it. And I think that's a major problem for Kiel.
I totally agree with Sascha. I still say with a keeper like Niklas Landin, it would have been different. Maybe when we not only talk about the percentage and 1 or 2% more, but those balls maybe were crucial in the last 5 minutes. I fully agree that Thomas Wirk is doing a great job, and Belacene is also a good goalkeeper. So it's always a good goalkeeper can only shine with the cooperation of the defense. And there I absolutely agree. Weinhold is missing in the defense. Pekela was out for, I think, 8 weeks on the start. So without Weinhold and Pekela, the defense is weakened. Some others are not quick enough. Then they put the focus on Johansson. And I agree. And Russia, again, you take the words out of my mouth. Kipagoto is really the problem. What they're talking is that he has to fit in the system. This is what they're always talking about. They said he's the best talent of the world, but he has to fit into the system. Give this kid the ball and say him, you don't have to fit in the system.
For the goals.
And it's just, it's bigger success for the club than to say that exactly he has to fit in the good old skill system, than just say, give him the ball and score. So this is that. I think they understand it now, that the understanding between Skipagoto and the rest of the team is getting better. He learned German, what I heard, and but in my opinion, he's 21, and of course he's maybe the biggest talent in the world at the moment, depending on other Faroe Island players, which you might have not seen. 12-year-old centre backs from one of the 17 islands we have not seen. True that, but I always what I say. Maybe it's a joke from my side. I don't know if you can take me serious in that point. Maybe Kiel this season focus on the Champions League, but they never did. They always say we have to focus on Bundesliga to qualify for the Champions League. Maybe when you see really the matches in Paris or what they did in Zagreb. Okay, Zagreb was at this time not a perfect team, but they're number one in their Champions League group. They won at Paris. Of course, you should not lose 4 Bundesliga matches and the cup match when you're only at the beginning of November. So, but in the end, it's like Gary Lineker saying, we have 7 players on the court at the end of the season. THW Kiel is just, you never know how the season will go on. There are 5 points below Magdeburg and 7 below Füchse Berlin. But
before we let you both go, then let's do a little nomination for Alex's MVP race. Sascha, you did mention Olaf Marcel Scheffert. Anyone else you want to throw in there, and why? And of course, we can't say Gietzel because Gietzel is number 1. That's obvious.
Gietzel is number 1, and then it's about ranking 4 other players so far into the season. So this is, to this date, it's not looking forward into the future. It's to this date.
Well, Manuel Zehnder at Eisenach, I think you have to talk about him as MVP, obviously. I mentioned Ole Fossel Scheffert, although he didn't play that many games, but the impact he has on the team is just too big. That's probably it right now. I think Mate Klima at Leipzig has surprised a lot of people in a very positive way. So I just want to mention his name, not as an MVP, but as a surprising player nobody was talking about 1 year ago when he was still playing in the second league in Lübeck. So he's also a player to watch.
And Björn?
I do a crazy nomination because I nominate 2 coaches, Gudjon Valo Sigurdsson and Misha Kaufmann, because we have not talked about Gummersbach yet. They definitely belong to the winners. So my crazy nomination is not on the court, but on the bench. It's Kaufmann and Sigurdsson.
To be fair, Sigurdsson could probably do a job for most teams still and be among the top scorers. So yeah. Another on Leipzig, another great performer for them has been Viggo Christiansen. I've been very impressed with him for the most part this season. He's taken a lot of responsibility on the team, and he had a little bit of a positional battle as well at right back. With the return of Franz Semper, he's managed to take that position and make it his own. Good stuff. Thank you both. That was fantastic. Appreciate it again.
All the best to you.
Cheers.
Thank you to Sascha and Björn. Brilliant stuff, as always, from the two of them. And some input for your MVP race as well, Alex, which I'm sure the supercomputer will take into consideration as we release the next one shortly. Any other players are you going to throw in there to tempt us with that we haven't mentioned?
It is difficult, but for Kai Smits is trending up for me. As Putlik has dropped, got injured, Kai Smits has kind of been unleashed, which has been good to see. And you may look at it and Smits isn't reaching the like crazy highs that he had in terms of goal totals over the last couple of games. But you have to remember that he's not taking penalties.
Yep.
So he's actually, in terms of open play goals, he's right up there, kind of scoring 7 or 8 goals from open play per game over the last while. Although it is difficult. There's just so much movement around. There's very few players who are kind of going to the top and solidifying their position apart from Giesel,
right,
who is just averaging a quintuple and doing ridiculous things
every day of the week.
And I always like to throw in a goalkeeper, which Nicola Portner was in there for Magdeburg. He might stay there for Magdeburg as their best player of the season so far, because Felix Klar has been fantastic, but they've kind of taken turns, this Magdeburg team, to see who is better or worse.
Which is a good position to be in. Good, as we talked about, they have a proper squad.
It's pretty good.
Okay, then we'll find out who that is. Just a couple of things I want to touch on before we go. We will have a morning club later in the week for our Patreon fans, and we had a lot last week about the non-European handball scene, and I think it would be remiss of us not to mention what happened in the Pan American Games last week, where, well, we didn't see any of it in the final weekend because inexplicably the bloody Pan Am Sports Channel decided not to broadcast the semi-finals or the finals of the men's competition, despite showing all the other games, which is an absolute disgrace. But we were following it on the old teletext, following the live score updates, and saw that, first of all, USA missed out on the bronze medal by the narrowest of margins to Chile. And Argentina surprised Brazil with a 7-goal win, despite first half red card to Diego Simeone, and managed to book their spot for Paris 2024.
Yeah, really, really impressive from Argentina. For some reason, we just have Brazil above Argentina. Like, in my head, I have Brazil above Argentina because I think this Argentina team is probably kind of has gone through a bit of a transition from top level, but they've actually just continued to get better and have actually been better than Brazil over the last maybe 5 years. But for some reason, I still have Brazil coming in because they have the bigger stars. I think the Argentina, there's only so much that Diego Simeone can do, and in this case, he got a red card at the start of the game, and they still won without him. Really impressive. Again, couldn't watch it, so I can't tell you what happened in the game and how it unfolded. Yeah, very impressive Argentina who book an Olympic place, and really impressive from the US to almost beat Chile. This is they came back. They were right there at the end. 1 goal in at 28-27 to Chile in that bronze medal match. That would have been a real big result for the USA. Getting a medal at the Pan Am Games would have been quite impressive.
but not to be. But yeah, congratulations to Argentina, bucking that spot for the Olympics. And as I said, we'll be back later in the week with a morning club focus around the Super Globe, which started this morning as a recorded Kielce narrowly avoiding a shock defeat against Al Naima, which we kind of alluded to last week in the podcast. So interesting to see how those groups play out and if there's any surprises along the way. For now, thank you, Alex, and thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye.